Yeah, I mean, credit to the Eagles, man. They played better than us from start to finish. We didn't start how we wanted to. Obviously, the turnovers hurt. And, I mean, I take all the blame for that. I mean, just those early turnovers swing the momentum of the game, and then they capitalized on them, and they scored on the one, and then they got a touchdown immediately after. So that's 14 points that I kind of gave them, and it's hard to come back from that in the Super Bowl. And so just didn't play to my standard, and I have to be better next time. Yeah, I think the kid made a great play. He sat underneath Worthy, and I tried to reset back and throw it across the field to D-Hop and put it in a tight window, and he made a great play on it, and then returned it for a touchdown. And then the second interception, I was trying to throw it to Hollywood, got bumped a little bit, but still got to find a way to make the throw. When I kind of sailed behind Hollywood and went right to the linebacker.
You guys obviously knew what this defensive line was about. How impressed were you with what Philadelphia did in this game?
Yeah, they played great. There's no way around it. I mean, they played great from start to finish. They got after it. Defensive line played really well. The DBs played well to complement them, and linebackers as well. And so, like I said, I mean, I can't turn the ball over early in the game when it's not going our way, and I'll have to learn from that and try to be better the next opportunity that I hopefully get.
You talked about the Tampa Bay Super Bowl as being a big disappointment in your career. Mm-hmm. Did you feel more overwhelmed today than you did that day? Is that a fair thing to say?
I mean, both sucked. I mean, there's no way around it. Anytime you lose a Super Bowl, it's the worst feeling in the world. They'll stick with you the rest of your career. I mean, these will be the two losses that will motivate me to be even better for the rest of my career, because you only get so few of these, and you have to capitalize on these, and they hurt probably more than the wins feel good.
The chance that that repeat, Patrick, the chance that that repeat does hurt more than chance that went by.
No, I mean, not necessarily. Well, losing the Super Bowl just doesn't feel good either way. Anyway, I mean, I was proud of how my team fought this entire season with the expectations that we had on us, but we came up short, and so now it's how you respond, and hopefully that we can learn from this like we learned from the last loss that we had, and try to continue to get even better, because it's going to take a better football, especially for me, in order to try to make a run at another Super Bowl.
Did the Eagles describe the scene in the locker room afterwards? What did you try to get across to the guys?
You know, I didn't have to say much. You know, I thought other leaders, Chris Jones especially, spoke, and like we talked about, I mean, it hurts. I mean, it's going to hurt for a while, but how can you respond from it? We have a great football team. We still have a young football team, and a lot of these guys will be their first time having a defeat in a season. And how can you get better? How can you not be satisfied with just getting here and taking your game to the next level? And that starts with me and the other leaders on this team, but it'll feed throughout the entire team, and hopefully we can come back next season and put up a better effort.
All right, so Mahomes pragmatic in his autopsy of this latest loss. Not really leaning into the emotion of it all. He knows he's going to use it as he used it before. Quest for a three-peat. It's the furthest anyone's ever made it. Getting to the Super Bowl, a feat in and of itself, but they fall one game short of the unthinkable. All right, back with the guys. I don't want to put words in the mouth of the best quarterback in the world, but it sounded like they were the better team. It sounded like he sat there and said they were the better team. Yeah. So much of the subtext in what he said there. What do you take away from his thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because we talked about this, Moose. The last two Super Bowl wins that the Chiefs had, people thought the other team was the better team. And that's why I think a lot of people thought that the Chiefs could pull off this three-peat because they had Patrick Mahomes, that quarterback. But you were just talking to B-Mac and Pete, and I think that's the biggest thing that showed up on tape all year long, but it showed up more in the Super Bowl, the talent deficiency between the Philadelphia Eagles and also the Kansas City Chiefs as well. So Patrick Mahomes, he talked about it, you can't turn the football over like that. The second one is kind of hard to put on him because as a quarterback, if you're not able to throw, like step into a throw, you don't know where that football is going to go. Also the sack fumble, again, you don't know, Milton Williams coming around the corner, protection breaks down, you get sacked. Obviously, the first one he can't have. He didn't read the coverage right. Didn't see Cooper DeJean there, and he kind of locked in on, I believe it was D-Hop there, and he throws the interception. But Patrick Mahomes will bounce back from this. Now, the thing is, Moose, we kind of alluded to this earlier, I love how this team has been able to reinvent themselves. Go to the 2019 season, right? It was Tyreek Hill, you know, getting behind the defense, getting explosive plays, right? Then you go to the 2022 season, they lose Tyreek Hill, but they still are the #1 offense in football because Mahomes throws for over 5,000 yards. Kelsey has nearly 1,400 yards receiving.
Yeah.
You go to last year, they're led by their defense. And then this team, right, the talent wasn't there, but they out-executed everybody until this game here. So Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they always reinvent themselves, and they evolutionize themselves. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here.
I took 2 things from Patrick Mahomes there. Number 1, accountability. He showed up to the podium. He answered questions. He was being honest. But number 2, he talked about the fact that this is a young team, that many players on his team only have experienced going to and or winning the Super Bowl. And conversely, you saw an Eagles team that each individual player was willing to do the work. I don't think enough can be said about the young team that just expects Patrick Mahomes to make these magical moments and does not realize, like every other veteran in the NFL, you have to improve from the championship game to the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs just did not do that. They didn't do it as coaches, and they didn't do it as players, particularly the young players that you need to play well.
I love that he brought up the accountability and that this is a young team, because I think this is what's getting lost in this whole thing. This Chiefs run reminds me a lot of the 80s 49ers run. They won in 81, 84, 88, 89. And what happened after 89, I don't want to see happen to this Kansas City team. They lost Bill Walsh, who retired, and then George Seifert took over. We're not accounting for what if Andy Reid hangs up. We know they're going to, you know, work and get all the talent. They've shown that, to your point, Leger, over time and time again. They'll retool, and each team will be different. But what if we can't just expect Andy Reid to be there for another 10 years? Yeah. You know, so who is up and coming, and what if he decides this was his final run? Not saying that it is going to happen, but we have to prepare for that, and we can't get used to seeing the Chiefs here year in, year out, because everyone around them has gotten better. Buffalo, Baltimore, the entire AFC West has gotten better. So, you know, it's not given, it's not guaranteed, but as long as you do have Patrick Mahomes and he's able to take accountability for these type of games and losses, they're going to be able to get back into the mix.
We made the comparison upstairs. There were 2 clear parts of that Patriot dynasty. Now, the coach was the through line and the quarterback as well, but there was the McGinnis, Rodney Harrison group, and then there was the Gronk and Edelman group, and redefining themselves in many ways and what they asked of their quarterback as well throughout that dynasty. Reinvention coming once again here for Mahomes, maybe not to that extent just yet, but it is going to be an effort in and of itself to get up off the mat and try and do it again. When you're invigorated by another one of those rings, maybe it makes it a little easier. When you taste defeat, Ryan, on this grand stage after playing, let's call it what it is, an extra season over these last 5 years compared to most teams in the NFL. What will that require? Oh,
it'll require the accountability we've already heard, but some honesty amongst the coaching staff as well. Their plan, their roster did not work. It did not hold up a candle to what the Eagles had put together. Now, you get the home field advantage as well in the playoffs, and now you can start disguising some of that lack of talent. But they have to find some pieces that are consistent at the edges. You need a strong receiving core that's going to consistently show up. Yes, Xavier Worthy looks nice, but is he that game breaker? Is he that Stephon Diggs? Is he that A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith? I don't know. He hasn't shown it. So they need to find some stability. And that running back position, they're just not getting enough from there as well. Now, if that's linemen, hey, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm drafting 2 tackles, 2 guards, and we're going to the 5th round, finding some other positions. But they need to get some offensive line help.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to have to happen. You have to find ways to build that depth, and they showed a lack of depth. Because we saw the Eagles' rotation throughout the course of that game along that defensive line. Guys that were getting in, Ojamo got in and got a couple of big plays. And so if you don't have that rotational depth within your offense or your defense, if you're Kansas City, then those type of issues come up in the biggest games.
Fellas, I go back to that 2020 Super Bowl where they got kind of embarrassed like this game, and they retooled the offensive line, to your point, Ryan. Now, they've tried to take a few picks at offensive tackle. It hasn't worked. They have to mitigate or figure that out, because that's 2 Super Bowls where they got blown out because of the offensive tackle play, or lack thereof, right? And when you look at the rest of the league, Pete always alludes to it. You got to have big people on the offensive line and defensive line. You have to win the battle in the trenches. And for a good portion of this run, the Chiefs have been the more physical team.
Yeah.
But they weren't tonight at all, and it wasn't even close. And throughout spurts of the season, we've seen that they haven't won the physical battle, right? So they have to do that first and foremost. The biggest question is, as far as playmakers on the outside, what is Travis Kelce going to do, right? There's a lot of talk that he may walk away from the game. You know, he's got a dope podcast with his brother, I think sold for $100 million. Could there be life after football? Who is going to be the next apparent to him? Because him and Mahomes have such a rapport. They know exactly where each other are going to be at any given play. So you see Travis Kelce there didn't have the game that he probably wanted to have in the Super Bowl as well. And we were talking about this also. Rasheed Rice in week 1 looked like he was going to be a star player. Right now, hopefully they get him back. You never know how somebody's going to return from an injury. But that will help this offense as well as far as being more explosive on offense. I think Isaiah Pacheco was just beat up this year.
Yeah.
You would hope the offseason he'd get back to who he was 2 years ago. So they have to fix the offensive tackle position more than anything. I think that's the biggest thing the Chiefs have to fix.
I will say this. I'll ask 2 questions. Is Pat going to be there? Is Andy going to be there? The group that you put around it, as we saw on this night, very important, but you can win with those 2.
Oh, for sure.
Now, can you overcome a talent deficit like we saw in this game? The proof is in the pudding. You cannot, but we'll see what it looks like this next version of the Kansas City Chiefs.